That me there? Can you see
There we
my
go.
screen?
There we
We're
go.
good?
Now we got it.
Super, sorry about that.
We're back on track.
Yeah. So ROI strategy for local business, it's really GMB. There's about 50% of the searches on Google have a local intent, meaning they're looking for a business or something near them. It's just super important. I mean, there's lots of numbers that people measure, but it's really, really super important to get into the 3-pack. That's where you're visible, right? Not a lot of people hit that more places button. You want to be in the top 3 as much as possible, and we'll talk about the coverage area as we go along. Again, 88% of consumers who search for a local business on their mobile will visit that business within 24 hours. And people don't have time to start searching, clicking, and you want to be right there in their face in the top 3. Problem is, and I get these questions a lot because I'm in the forums of Google support, my listings aren't showing up, or I was showing up and now I'm not showing up. What's going on? And it's really sometimes difficult to diagnose because there's so many things in local SEO, and there's so many things with your listing and with your website. It's just hard to know. And then throw in a rank algorithm, change that Google just put in, and every once in a while, and it's always fluctuating. It's really hard to know. So the first thing, I can't just when someone asks me, well, I'm not ranking well anymore, my first question is, well, how are you measuring? Because there's so much personalization in the results through your IP address or your previous searches. Are you using incognito mode? Where are you searching from? So I need to know where, what your actual rankings are. And so that's basically one of the reasons why I created Local Falcon, is because I just had these questions, and none of the other rank trackers were answering this for me, because they were checking from one spot. And if you check from your business location, usually you're ranking number 1, because proximity is such a huge factor in the algorithm. The further you will go away from your business, the lower you're going to rank. And that only makes sense if you're looking for a dentist. You want one that's close to you. You're not going to go to a different town to find a dentist, right? The same thing for a pizza place. Google is really going to show businesses that are close to you. And so Local Falcon scans different points across the map and can tell you where you're ranking. And so that really gives you a great indication of, are you ranking well for a keyword? Are you not ranking well? Or is there a part of town that you're missing? And it gives you a lot better information. So, and then we'll talk about this a little bit later. I mentioned proximity. And so there's 2 other main ranking factors that Google has admitted to and tells us about, is proximity, relevance, and prominence. So relevance is pretty simple, and you can't really do much about that. Is basically, are you in a restaurant category when someone's looking for a restaurant? Are you in a, your listing has to be the right category. So it only makes sense if I look for a pizza place, Google's not going to show me a dentist, right? So that's just the right category. Pretty simple. You can't really do much besides choosing the right category and maybe adding information on your website that has that kind of information as well. So everything else, all the rest of the Google algorithm, is basically prominence. And so that's like their black box, right? Everything else is in there hidden. It's your citations, it's your website optimization, it's all that other stuff that they don't really want to give the details on. And we'll talk about prominence a lot here, how to increase that. So Google is always changing. People are always, oh, there's a ranking algorithm update, what's going on? Things are moving around. But then I say, not really, because they still tell us those 3 core ranking, elements. And so even though the details change, right? They'll tweak a dial and make content a little bit more. They'll tweak another dial, and then backlinks will count for more. Their general algorithm is pretty much the same all the time. And so we just have to be careful when we're saying to make large changes, because a lot of times Google will make changes and then revert them. And so we just want to stick with what we know as SEO is there's certain things that always work. And then, yeah, there's other stuff that might work, but you'll want to take care of the core issues first on the website and your GMB listing. So what does Google tell us? Verify your locations, enter as much data as possible, keep your hours accurate, respond to reviews, and add photos. So they tell us directly on the Google site that these things are what Google wants to see. And so we have to pay attention to that. And a lot of people say, oh, whatever, don't listen to Google. But sometimes when they tell you things, you really have to listen and be, on top of it. And so this was an example of an email where I received this for an old client that I didn't have anymore, and they probably weren't doing anything. And they're like, is your business information accurate? And what this tells me when I see something like that is like Google cares, right? Because they want to show accurate data to all their users. That's why everyone uses Google, is because they have the most information, the most accurate information, and it's useful to people. And so if you don't go in and update your listing, whether it's by responding to reviews or putting your photos in there or updating hours for holidays and things like that, Google knows and says, well, the listing owner hasn't gone in for 3 months. Let's send them an email and say, update your stuff, because you can imagine the algorithm where it says, well, they haven't updated for 3 months or 6 months or whatever. I don't trust that information anymore. So I'm not going to put them ranking high because I don't trust that information. So constant up to date on your GMB listing is a ranking factor in that sense. And now what's the exact time? We don't know. Is it, is it after 3 months will they start demoting you? I know that with posts, with the Google posting feature, for example, they want you to go in every week and do that. So there's definitely a time thing, and the more you log in and update, the better you're going to fare. Here's our checklist. I think we're going to share this in our Facebook group where you can download it. So it's just a bunch of things. Some of them are one-time things. Some of them are ongoing things, and we have that split up. It's just super important to stay on top of it. And that's what we do, right? That's what DBA helps you do, is it lets you schedule things, and because it's hard to, as a business owner, to log in every week and do a post, and log in every week and do that consistent work that is going to help you rank higher. The scheduling aspect that DBA provides it makes it a lot easier. You just sit down for half an hour, you schedule all your stuff, and then you're good for 3 months. So let's keep going on some more specifics here. So complete your profile. There's lots of fields in GMB, and different categories will have different fields available to them. I just want to point out here that the title tag, in this case, has dentist in Tampa. You're not supposed to do that, but those keywords in the title make a huge difference. I've actually had clients that have just rebranded and put new signs up so that they can put the keywords in their listing name. So they'll, the rule is that there has to be visible signage on outside, and that has to match your business name. So if there's a way to rebrand or put those keywords in your sign so that it matches your Google listing, so that you're within the guidelines, then go ahead and do that. That's not wrong to do, but you don't want to put those keywords in, then someone will flag you down, and then you could get your listing suspended. So you want to do it the right way. Verify your local citations. So a lot of people say that these citations are no longer important. A lot of SEOs are, there's oh, just get the main ones and don't forget about the other ones. But Google feeds off of data, and the more data you have out there for the algorithm to find and crawl, the better that your rankings are going to be. It just only makes sense where if I have one person tells me about a business, okay, whatever. But if 30 people tell me how good a business is, I'm going to be much more apt to believe a group of 30 people than only one person, right? So the same thing when the algorithm goes and the crawlers go, if they see one set of data, okay, fine. But if there's 30 websites out there that say the same information, then the algorithm trusts that that data is more accurate and will, again, Google wants to serve accurate information to people, so it'll put your rankings higher. You'll also see Garmin and Waze in this group here. There's other things besides web citations, and there's GPS navigators in this case, where those need to stay updated constantly, because if you can imagine someone's in their car and they're going somewhere, and the Garmin says, hey, go to that restaurant, it's open from this time to this time, and then you get there and it's closed or it's shut down or something. So those car navigation systems data feeds need to be always on the ball. And so you want to make sure that your listing is getting, that your information is getting sent to those people consistently so that they know that it's all correct. Managing your reviews is super important. It doesn't have a direct ranking factor. There's an indirect ranking factor here. This is more about the user trust on your listing. So you want to try to answer within 24 hours. Every review that you get, whether it's 5-star or 1-star, you obviously want to try to answer professionally every time. You're supposed to get a notification when you receive a review, but if you have a lot of listings in your dashboard, sometimes Google won't send them out to you. I've seen some that just completely get missed. So with our tools, we have a review monitoring system where you can actually go in and it'll pull in all the reviews together, and you can answer instead of going in your dashboard and trying to find which listing had the review and one by one, especially when you have franchises and they're all named exactly the same. It's really a pain in the butt, to be honest. So it kind of really helps you do that in an efficient way. Uploading your photos and video. So this is super important, and I have a couple other slides coming in on this to show why it's super important. Not only is it important for users to show, if you're a dentist and you have a great looking office, you want to display that. You want to show that off, and people will, oh, look, they have a nice place, doesn't look scuzzy, whatever it is. If you have products, put nice pictures of your products. If you have team members, show you that human face to your business, photos of your team. Anything that you can put on your listing to help connect with that person looking at your listing. It also, like I said before, with the other reviews, is that it's not a direct ranking factor. So the more pictures you put doesn't mean that you're going to rank higher. It just means that people will click on your listing more, right? So you have more data on your listing. People will click and read more reviews and scroll and click those pictures. That interaction on your listing is what is the ranking factor. If you can imagine, there's 2 listings and one is kind of empty and one has lots of pictures and reviews and posts, and someone comes around and looks at one listing, okay, whatever, looks at the other listing and clicks on it and reads it and spends time on it, Google is going to analyze that information and say, well, this other listing is getting a lot of interactions. It must be important. So let's rank it higher than the one that's getting less interaction. So it's not because you have more pictures that you're going to rank higher. It's the more interactivity with those images. So you want to put good things on your listing. And another important thing about the images is I'm going to talk about the Google Vision AI. So basically, Google is analyzing all your images that you upload. And you'll see on the left-hand side here where I did a search for jewelry store near me. And you'll see the third one there is a Pandora store. And you'll see those images there are basically the outside of their stores, right? They're in malls, but it's the outside of their storefronts. On the right-hand side, I did a search for pendant necklace. And you'll see Pandora is the first result on that case, but you'll see how the image is completely changed. Whereas the other two, the Michael Hill and the People's Jewelers, still have their outside image displaying there. So what Google did is it chose an image from that they've uploaded to their GMB listing. So Pandora took pictures of their products, put it onto their GMB listing, and Google analyzed that image and said, hey, someone's looking for a pendant necklace. Oh, that store has a pendant necklace. Let's put it there. So are they ranking first because of that? It's hard to know, but definitely as a user, now, oh, Pandora has pretty much exactly what I'm looking for, or the style I'm looking for. I'm going to click on that. So they may not click it because it's first, but they might click because it's has a really accurate image to what they were searching for. So it's really important to put those images and products and things like that onto your GMB listing, because there's other, I don't say hidden benefits because it's obviously right here, but there's things that you don't necessarily think about that that Google is doing with that information that you're providing. Just again, to talk about the Google Vision AI, so different kind of images you can put, and I've uploaded a pizza, and you'll see where Google will actually analyze that image, and it knows it's a pizza. It knows it's a California style pizza. It knows that there's ingredients on it. Like it's crazy the amount of information it knows by just the amassing amount of information that it has to analyze. And on the right side, I uploaded a picture of the Flatiron Building in New York City. It's a well-known building. And I didn't put in the like keywords or anything like that. All I did was upload a blank, I said picture on the file name. It doesn't know anything about it, but it knows that it's the Flatiron Building. It knows exactly where it is. It even shows me a map of where it is. And so Google is doing this with your images. And so for local SEO, you can, upload images that are of your town. You can put those images maybe on your website because it's going to be the same thing. Google will analyze those images. So images are really important, but I want to emphasize the consistency on those images, right? You just don't want to take 100 images and upload them to your GMB all at once and then let them sit for 6 months, and then before you do it again. You want to be every week, you want to put in a few, and that way when people are looking at your listings, they're like, oh, this is recent. The listing owner is paying attention. They're on the ball, right? They're current. And so you want to be consistent. And again, the scheduling tool that we have really allows for that, to make it a lot more efficient.
On the note of visuals and photos, Nate asked a question. What's the best way to help clients understand the importance of images to share on GMB? A lot of mine don't seem to feel the urgency. And I think you're sort of on that topic right now. This is a good explanation. Do you have more to say about that?
Well, I was just giving a couple examples here, but so there's lots of ideas. But if you're trying to explain it to a business owner, I mean, this is pretty much what you would have to explain is give them examples like this. Is, hey, it's not just a picture, it's information, and Google lives off of information. So to you, it just looks like a pizza, but Google knows, well, that's a pizza, that's a product that you sell, that's, this is a building, this is a location, it's information that you're providing to Google, and the more information you give Google, the better they're going to like you.
And Nate, I would also add to that and just say, I know from looking at the research myself, images are processed 600,000 times faster than text. And I have some more. You can look these statistics up very easily, but a picture is worth 1,000 words. But that's literally true because pictures involve like the visual cortex and a lot more of the a lot more areas of brain processing than reading does. Reading is actually an auditory function. So when you talk about the difference between visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and how people process information, although you use your eyes to read words, it's an auditory function, because what you're doing is you're reading to yourself in your mind and you're hearing it. And your auditory channel is very small compared to your visual channel. So just brain psychology, visuals are, a lot of the heat mapping and stuff will show you that people go right to the pictures. Pictures of the human form are more attractive than pictures of inanimate objects. And we spend at least twice as much time on pictures as we do anywhere else on a website. So I don't know if any of that helps, but those statistics are pretty easy to find too.
And sometimes it's difficult to put pictures for a service area business if you're a plumber or if you're or even a lawyer. You know, what are you gonna? You can try to be creative, but you know, show pictures of your team, like I mentioned. Show pictures of your office. You could put an image of an award banner that you've received. Anything that can increase that trust with that user. So there's lots of ideas that you can use for images if you're stuck. You just have to be a little bit creative and find those ideas. And work with the client. You know, if you have a branded vehicle, put that branded vehicle out there. Again, if I see a plumber and I see a branded vehicle and I see a plumber and it just has stock images, I'm going to, well, that guy must be more established. He has actually a truck or a store or something that has an image. It's not just some no-name person, right? So it really helps in every single way to add those images. So we'll keep going. So your posts. So posts are again important because not only do they include the image, but they include the text. And the text itself doesn't have a ranking factor, so don't shove keywords in there just because you think you're going to rank better. But that text has to make sense to the user. It has a call to actions, which are good. You know, it's great for if you have a coupon or a sale. And all the images, again, that you use on your post get fed into your image section, and it all works together. Google wants to see or highly suggest to do it every week, because if you don't do it every week, they fall off of your knowledge panel. So once you put a post, it's there on your knowledge panel. Depending if you're on desktop or mobile, it'll show up in different places. But after a week, it'll say like, see more updates from this business, and it won't prominently show it anymore. So every week is a good way to do that, and we make it easy for you to do that as well. So some of these things I mentioned will help your rankings, and some of them won't. So there's some indirect ones to do, and there's direct ones to do. But I just don't want to ignore your website. I know I mentioned it briefly, but a lot of information about your GMB listing is flowing through your associated website, right? So Google is reading the content, and it helps ranking. So, and this is really evident where there's businesses where there's no category for, right? So there's some, I can't think of it off the top of my head, but there's some businesses where there's just no category for. And I get this question on the forum, and they'll be like, well, I don't have any category for my business. What do I do? Well, you got to pick the closest one. But what happens is Google will read the information on your associated website and see those keywords, and then link it up into the search results. And sometimes on the results, it'll say this website mentions XYZ keyword. And so you have to optimize your website as well as your GMB listing. So I don't want to be like, oh, just optimize your listing and that's all you have to do. There's extra work involved. And so we talked about the initial problems. Why aren't I showing up? I have low rankings. But these things take a lot of time to do, right? So I talked about consistency, and business owners have a hard time doing it all the time. And if you're an agency working for a business owner, they might be like, here's 100 images that I have. But again, you don't want to go and do them all at once, because that's not the best way to do it. And so in order to help save time and make things more efficient, that, you know, I'll talk about our DBA tools in a minute. I have this slide here about the turtle and the hare, and my point here is, again, you don't want to just run ahead and then take a nap, right? You want to be consistent all the time. Google likes data, but it likes recent data. So you just want to go step by step by step. Consistency in this will win. You just keep moving. If you fall asleep, your competitors are going to start to get ahead of you, and that's just the way it is. So let's talk about our tools. And here's a nice graphic here. So we talked about our local rank tracker and local Falcon. So that's really the starting point. You want to see what keywords need to be improved and where you're ranking. And so that it's a good starting point from there. We talked about the photos and the post scheduling. And what's great about our thing is that when you have a lot of listings in a franchise, or you have 100 listings, you want to post right now through the GMB dashboard. You have to go to each one of those listings and copy paste post, copy paste post. It's really super annoying. They don't have the capability within the native GMB dashboard to do that. And so our API basically can publish one time. You enter in the information and push it out to all your listings for the photos, for the posts, and it lets you see all the reviews in one space. It really makes it a lot easier than trying to go through your dashboard. There's some other things here. Maybe we'll talk about them later if people have questions. Our photo optimizer, I just mentioned. Post scheduler, same thing. And it does a lot of other stuff. I don't want to get into the details. Like it'll add data in the background of the pictures, and you have UTMs for better tracking. So there's all kinds of really cool extras in that in our tool that you can take care of. The review management as well, same thing. It lets you see everything in one spot, and you'll make sure that you don't miss anything. Let's see, what did we miss here? Our live inventory, our Swiss, we didn't talk about. So this is if you have products, if you're kind of an e-commerce or you're selling products in your store, there's a way to connect your inventory to your GMB listing. And it's not the ad section, but what it'll do is it'll actually show the products right in your GMB listing. So someone search for Nike shoes, and it'll show your listing, say this listing, this store has Nike shoes, and there's 5 available, right? So that's really cool. Try to learn a little bit more about that. If you contact us, we can let you know. And then there's call tracking. Call tracking is important because the GMB Insights dashboard misses a lot of stuff, to be honest. It only can track calls coming from a mobile phone. So if someone brings up your listing on a desktop, picks up the phone and dials it, that GMB Insights is not recording that call, right? It can't. And so if you put a tracking number into your Google listing, and you can, Google has a field for that, you'll be able to track all your leads. And that's the good thing about internet marketing and online marketing, is that we have all this data. We have to make sure that the data is correct, right? And once you have all that data, then you could make better marketing decisions and where are you going to put your resources, right? So this is a case study that we have. We have the link on our site. Basically, this was just citations. And so we started on the left-hand side with our before. We did nothing. It was a restaurant listing. And basically, I think it was about 3 months later, we ran some citations to it, make sure they are indexed, and the rankings improved. There were no ranking algorithm updates during this time. And it really makes a lot of sense to make sure that your citations are done properly, especially if you've just moved or if you're a new business. I've heard it called, they're like table stakes. It's just information that Google needs to see. And I talked about it. The more you do up to a certain point, because after about 30 citations, you're getting into these scrubby websites, and honestly, Google is not going to care about those. But you have to hit the main ones, then some secondary ones, and we help you do that as well. And again, the more information Google has, the better, and the more up to date it is, the better. And so I just envision like it's a little Pac-Man, and it's just eating information all the time. All right, Sarah, I'll let you take over from here, and then we'll go for questions after that.
Okay, awesome. So the Q&A right now has about 33 questions in it. If you haven't had a chance to look and see what's there, you might want to check it out and just upvote the things that you think are the most relevant to you. And we'll attack the questions in order of popularity in a second. In the meantime, if we don't get to your question, or if you have specific questions or scenarios, we do have a private Facebook group where really it's for Jan, Google experts, our customers, the rest of our staff goes in there. And we basically, I mean, Jan's in there every day answering questions about general things and also about things that are happening and changing due to COVID-19. I noticed that there are questions in the Q&A right now, like I just noticed Google dropped part of my my business name. How do I get that back in there? I mean, there's so many of these little scenarios that if you don't kind of have an expert to ask, you will struggle with them. So please join our Facebook group. Matt is standing by. He puts the link to the Facebook group in the chat, and he will actually let you in right now if you try to join, because it is a private Facebook group, and we try to keep mostly people that aren't interested in GMB out of it. But if you go right now, he'll let you in. So please do that. What else do we have, Jan?
Let's see, we got, you get some scans.
Oh, and as new Facebook group members, so the local Falcon scans that Jan was showing that show you how you rank in the 3-pack in the Google Maps section with all the colors and the numbers, those scans cost something to run. Google charges us to run them through local Falcon, and we provide those to our customers, but you can get a free one to see, if you want to take a look at your location and see how it ranks. It also has information on how your competitors are ranking. When you join the Facebook group, just ask for some credits and Matt will hook you up. Okay.
All right. So we've got some questions. So I didn't talk about the COVID. I was just going through the normal slides though. So just to talk about the updates, because I just had a meeting with Google an hour ago, basically. So everything as far as reviews should be back to normal, except for if you're in like the medical categories. I don't know why they didn't turn those ones back on, but if you're not seeing your reviews and you're not in the medical category, then you might want to contact support and say what's going on. There's still a bug where it's the new reviews are not getting counted properly. So you might have 15 reviews, but your listing might actually only say 10. And that gets updated once in a while. And so they're just behind. So you'll see little discrepancies like that. And it's funny because a lot of people just expect Google to work perfectly all the time. And it really affects small businesses when it doesn't. But really, they're just a big software company, and they have glitches, and their systems are insanely complicated. And sometimes I'll send stuff to them, and they're like, "We have no idea what's going on," right? So they have to investigate it and check. And so it's really important to keep on top of your listing, because you might have a problem and you don't even know, right? So you have to check it. You have to bring it up and see, does my listing look okay? How does it look the same as it did last month? And you can take a screenshot and compare. There's lots of things that you kind of have to be doing. And unfortunately, because Google has such a monopoly on it, you need to check it, because that's where people are going to find you.
Awesome. We have a lot of questions today about posts, photos, EXIF data in photos. So we're gonna hit those. I was gonna try to lump them together, but it's impossible because there's a bunch. So I'll hit you with them, but there's a lot of those. And then people have asked about the recording, and the recording for this presentation will be available in the Facebook group. So if you join the private Facebook group, you'll have access to it.
Yeah. So I know I go through those slides fast. So if I know the recordings are important.
So Trevor asked a really good question. Does searching on an incognito tab mimic what a SERP would look like for the average consumer searching in the area?
It's a lot better. I don't know if it's 100%, because you have to imagine their device is also going to have some personalization on it, right? And if you do a lot of searches, Google will see the searches coming from your IP. even though you're on incognito, your IP still is recorded. And so it's most of the time it's sufficient, but there's no perfect rank tracking way. If I just want to say that there's no way I can perfectly emulate what Google is going to show to somebody else. And so all the rank trackers try to clear out as much data as possible. So when Local Falcon is showing you data, you know, it might show number 5, but it might actually be number 6 to somebody else because they've done searches. It's just a default. It's as clean of a search as possible. But incognito, just to answer the question, incognito is a must, but it doesn't mean it's going to be exact.
Okay. Mike asked, how important is geotagging images for relevance?
For relevance, well, my general answer to that is, you know, the more information you give to Google, the better. The problem with the geotagging is it can take time, right? If you have a lot of images and you're doing it manually, putting in that information of GPS location and keywords and tags and stuff like that, that's a lot of time that you're spending that you might be better spent doing something else. And so I know that through our tools, when you upload an image, it automatically adds that information for you. And so, you know, there's no extra time spent. So I find that it's good if you can automate it, but if you're going to be spending time and manually inputting stuff, it's not worth the time to do because it's such a
probably
small
not the
ranking
biggest
factor.
bump. Yeah, it's not the biggest bump you can get.
And we can't measure little things like that. It's really, there's just so many factors and fluctuations. You know, SEOs will say, oh, it doesn't do anything. Well, honestly, we can't test that. It's such a micro thing that we can't test it. So my feeling is add it if you can do it efficiently. You know, that's when you do it.
I think that you'll see too that real pictures. So if you have a pizza place and somebody takes a picture of your pizza in your place, those pictures are already geotagged for location and they're better than stock photos. So I think that's where you're going to see a big difference. In the dbaPlatform, it does it for you by location. So it's an added feature, but if you had to sit there and do it, it would probably not be worth the time. Anonymous asked, do marking up the GMP images with geo-specific EXIF data help rankings by location? Will putting those images in posts with EXIF data help rankings? And I think we covered that one.
Yeah. So and just to come back to we get this question often. So that's why I in this time I put in that image of the Google Vision AI of the Flatiron building. Google is able to analyze a place, right? So if you help it by putting the EXIF data of a GPS location, that's fine, but it actually is looking at the image itself and can localize it if it's a well-known area, if it's a big street corner or it has a well-known building or something like that. So Google is using different sorts of data, and probably it'll use that over the EXIF data that you put. If Google can basically figure it out on its own, it probably will use that information over. But if you're just in a small town and there's nothing that Google knows what it is, then putting that GPS data in there is probably is helpful.
Delfino asked, could you please explain the advantages Local Falcon has over Local Viking?
I don't know if I should talk about it. Well,
you know what? That's a tough one, Delfino, because Jan invented Local Falcon, so he's a very humble guy, by the way. So it's hard to get him to talk about the competitors, but I know that he has strong feelings.
Yeah, they copied me, and yeah, so that's just the way it is.
Steven says, answer it, dude.
Well, I know they have a lot of tools, right? They have a scan tool. The scan tool might do the same job. I haven't actually tested it. I don't want to get in trouble. I know part of their systems are not always white hat stuff is basically what I'm going to say. They're doing some other stuff that I, for me personally, if I know that they're doing some non-white hat stuff, I don't know if I would want to put my business information into their system.
Delfino, I do know other people inside dbaPlatform that would be happy to tell you all about it. So if you contact me in the chat with your information, I'll hook you up with somebody who will tell you for real, offline, where there's no recording going. All right. Anonymous asked, do GMB posts affect rankings?
So like I mentioned, they're indirect, right? So the more information you put, the more people, oh, there's a post, someone clicks on it. Oh, you have another post. Let me look at that one. So that indirect interaction will help your rankings. It's not going to help for a specific keyword necessarily because we've had a keyword in a post. That's really the most, but again, we always focus on the rankings. And I know that's, what the webinar is about, but those posts really help, especially like for COVID, before they put the COVID post, it was really important for a business to engage with this is what we're doing. We're open, we're closed. We've installed new barriers for all our people are wearing masks now. Like that information is really important to give to people, especially when things are changing all the time. Like I know my wife is like, I go to a store, I don't know what's going to happen. I went last week, but now it's different. And it's stressful for people to go somewhere and you don't know what to expect. So putting that as a post is really important, and it makes the person feel more comfortable. So don't always think about the rankings. In this case, it's more important for the information to go to a user.
Somebody also asked a question about posts, and we'll get to that one, but they were asking, in a service area business, when you don't have a lot of pictures to show, is it redundant to do photos and posts? And a lot of people are asking, can you do too many photos? Can you do too many posts? And I just want to kind of give a summary on that, and then you can correct me on if there's more to say. But you can't put up too many photos, and photos stay up on the profile. Sometimes they do come down for certain reasons, which are, kind of unrelated. But with posts, the post goes up, it stays up for a week, it comes down. And what Matt has found, because Matt, who's on our call today as a panelist, Matt does a lot of posting for clients. And what he's found is that actually the most successful post type doesn't have a picture in it at all. It is just a colored background with words and an offer. So that actually catches the eye and has been the most successful in terms of getting people to click through. I guess if you can see my screen or my wall back here, I have a little plaque that says keep calm and carry on. The post types that look like that are actually the most successful, so they don't always have a picture on them. I've asked the question too, like, is there such a thing as too many posts? And the answer is no, but they become a scrolling feature and then drop off after 7 days. The only type of post that doesn't drop off after 7 days is if you put up an event. It will last until the event happens, so that post can stay out there for a long time. You can use that if you're having a sale or you're having an actual live event or something. So there are ways to use posts, and you really can't do it too much, but it's diminishing returns. So once a week, you want to do it to refresh and always have a post up there because they fall off. Did I say anything wrong there, Jan?
No, that's good. Yeah, and another example, because people say, what am I going to do? So another example I've seen is they'll take one of their reviews and they'll put it on the image, right? And they'll say like, here's a great review from one of our customers, and they'll put the actual text and that's your image, right? And then it just highlights things. So if you're running out of actual things to talk about, you can promote yourself that way too.
Mike asked, I'm not sure that I totally understand this question, but how can I increase relevance in a town neighboring where my office is located? Yeah,
so it's hard to rank in a neighboring area because, again, proximity is super important. That's, you can create a page on your website where you're focused. You know, I don't want to call it's not a landing page. It has to be better than a landing page where you talk about a certain area. And so I have a client that is in the, you know, we all have clients that have that exact situation, but in the example I wanted them to build out was they were interior design contractor. I said, well, did you do any work in that area of town? Right? They want to increase the rankings there. And I said, oh yeah, well, we did a job there like a year and a half ago. I said, well, create a page on your website, you know, then you can talk about that area of town. Here's the picture of the building. Here's what we did before and after. And so it's useful to a user because you're showing a case study, but at the same time, you're talking about, you know, this street, this address, this landmark, it's near this area. And so you're talking about that, and Google knows that information. And again, if you put images of a certain place, it'll know where that is. And so you could create a page on your website, focus something like that. So just not like a basic landing page, make it useful. And then you can put in things like that. You can, like I said, use images on your GMB listing, same exact way. Hey, we did a job in this area of town, or we go there all the time. And so you have to talk about that. You have to find ways for Google to find information. Why is your business important to that area? So you got to talk about it, put images about it. And again, in marketing, we got to be creative, and we got to talk with those business owners and say, you want to increase that area. Well, why should Google show you over another guy over there, right? There's a guy that already works there with their listing. Why should Google show them over you? So you gotta do that brainstorming sometimes.
Okay, and Sherry also chimes in to say COVID-19 posts last for 14 days instead of 7. So there are exceptions.
There's no images. There's no images on the COVID post, and so there's limitations.
Yeah, they're like a different post type. Yeah. Jamie asked, this is opening a can of worms. This is a big question. GMB, what tips can you give to increase the ranking range in Google Maps? I'm currently ranking first within 2 kilometers, but want to increase it to 5.
Right. So backlinks really helps, and not backlinks to the GMB listing, backlinks to your website. And so we talk about citations. So make sure you have all those citations, and make sure that those citations are indexed, right? So a lot of times citations get created, and they're buried 3 levels deep in the URL structure, and Google doesn't even know that they exist, right? So you can go to it, but you need to get that information indexed by Google, because then Google says, oh, I see that page, that links here. So the more information that Google crawls, the better. And a lot of times, if you've done all your other optimization and have taken care of like the technical things on your site and content, then you need to start looking at backlinks either in your citations, if those aren't done yet, because those are usually the easier ones to get. Getting links from local resources like your newspaper, or from chambers of commerce, or things like that, so that Google can localize your business. Once it localizes, then your reach will start to expand.
Rich asked, I'd love insight on optimizing for service area businesses versus pinned locations.
Yeah, so there's no inherent ranking demotion when you're a service area business and you don't hide your address. So I just wanted to mention that. There is a makes it more difficult, because when you bring up a map and then you have 2 competitors and they have their location and they get their pins actually showing, and then you're the third one and you don't have an actual pin on the map, so then you're not as visible on the map. So it definitely, there's a factor, a user factor in that, but ranking wise, you don't get demoted. I find that a lot of service area businesses, if they're working out of their home, they don't, you can hide your address on Google, but you can't necessarily hide your address on the citations, right? Your name, address, and phone number. I don't necessarily want to put my address everywhere on the web through all these citations. So not as many citations get built for those service area businesses because they're scared. They don't want to show their information. And so that's a conversation you need to have with the business owners. Like, hey, you know, it doesn't show on Google, but it'll show on Yelp or show on different, you know, directories. That's going to help you rank higher if that information is there. And so that's a piece of information that I feel that a lot of service area businesses are lacking, where they are more hesitant to build out all that citation information. So besides that, I mean, everything else is pretty equal. Besides that, everything's equal.
Mark says, how does an agency with one location show up in multiple communities in a big market like Dallas-Fort Worth?
So I'm assuming like it's ranking well across a wide area. I think that's what that question is. How are they getting that done? And I think it's similar to what other people have asked, is they're probably just getting tons of backlinks from things, from newspapers. So if you just say, you know, Houston, and I get backlinks from newspapers across Houston, and they keep mentioning Houston, someone will type in, you know, business XYZ Houston or keyword Houston, my listing will have a higher chance of going up because my business name has been associated with the location of Houston. And so a lot of it is backlinks.
Paula asked, if our business covers a large geographical territory, is it a good idea for me to set up more locations within that territory? In parentheses, I can find people who will let me use their addresses.
So we'll go with the first part. Yeah, so if on your website, it makes sense because you can rank organically anywhere. So if someone types in a town name or part of a town name, and you have a web page about that, then that's great. You're not supposed to do that for your listing. If you only have, you know, if you're a service area business, you're really only supposed to have one listing. If you're brick and mortar, then you have one listing per address, right? You're not supposed to use other people's addresses just to get more listings. That's what the spammers do to make it work, and you know, they get knocked down and more show up, and you don't want to risk a suspension by doing that, right? So let's say you have your one good listing and you have 30 reviews on it. It's been there for 2 years, and then but you want to rank in another section of town, and then you put 4 new listings out there, and then someone comes along and says, oh, they're not supposed to have 5 listings, they're only supposed to have 1, and then flags them all, then boom, they all got suspended. And so the listing that your real listing that you just worked so hard on for 2 years, it just got suspended, and it might be a week or 2 before it comes back, and then you got to prove to Google, and then it's a whole big mess. So I don't recommend going against the guidelines, because you could just get in trouble that way, and it can hurt you in the long run.
Nate says, what's the best way to help client? Oh no, we did that one. That was your importance of images on GMB. Let's see. Anonymous asked if there's a max number of images. If there is, do you delete the old ones? But for images, you just leave them, right, Jan?
Yeah, so the only thing that you might want to do is sometimes if there's a nice image, a good image that you want to keep up, and every time you add an image, it'll keep pushing the other ones lower and lower, and people have to scroll lower. So if you have a really beautiful image of your office, and you did it 6 months ago, and now it's 100 down the list, you know, you can re-upload that same image just to make it current, and people will see it a little bit more. You don't necessarily have to delete the old one. There's no limit. So that's up to you. But I wouldn't delete it. I would just add it again. If it's a year old, 6 months old, and it's buried, you can put the same one. Same thing with the post. You can reuse a post. It doesn't make a difference. Just don't reuse the same one every week, but you can every 2 months you can use the same post if it's relevant. Then
We cycle
use it.
through them for businesses that don't have anything new to say. We cycle through them every 8 weeks to put a fresh post up, and there's no hit for the duplication.
No.
Bruno asked, can I add both Q&A myself?
Yes. Yeah. So I didn't talk about that, but you can as the owner go on the public side, ask a question, and then as the owner through your answer your own question, and that's great. Use your Q&A section as an FAQ section. If you have FAQ on your site, copy paste all that stuff. There's no duplicate penalty. Really use that as much as possible, because it helps people when they're researching. It helps avoid useless phone calls to your office. Do you take this insurance? No, we don't. And then you get 5 of those every week. It just wastes time in your office. Put it right on your Q&A. People see it, and then it makes your office more efficient, because they're not wasting time answering questions that you always have to deal with that don't give you good leads, right? So definitely do that. If you upvote a question 3 times, so find 2 other people, upvote the question, it'll display directly into your knowledge panels. So because normally Q&A, it'll just say see people's question asks and stuff like that. But if you upvote it 3 times, it'll actually show that question and answer directly in your knowledge panel, be more prominent.
We have so many more questions here. I want to point out, Delfino, your question is very specific about the name of the business changing. If you will throw that one in the Facebook group, you can get an answer there on that one. Somebody asked, this was kind of an interesting one, and I wanted to make sure that I got to it, which is, 2 people asked this question. I'm going to combine it. It was like, if Google knows so much that it can figure out what photos you're using, if you use dbaPlatform with an API to put stuff directly into GMB, like, is Google going to know that you're doing that for multiple locations? And can that potentially have a negative impact?
No, there's no problem with the API, like feeding through information through the API. You can imagine all the large, huge brands, they're all using the API to put in information about their hundreds and thousands of listings, right? So Google is not going to put a penalty on that, right? Google likes big brands. They like, they want information, and that's the fastest way for Google to collect information is through the API. So why would they put any kind of penalty on that at all?
There's some more questions, so I know we didn't get to as many as I would have liked to, but please put your questions in the Facebook group. We do a webinar every month. A lot of times we do this Google 3-pack because it's kind of the basic, like how to do a general overview of the program, but we do some other things. We have we do change our webinar content to include things on Swiss, and we did a special COVID-19 one. But always we reserve like half of the webinar just to do Q&A. So please, feel free to come back no matter what our topic is, and you can ask questions. If they get upvoted in the Q&A, we'll answer them. If we can't answer them there, we'll do it in the Facebook group. Thank you so much for attending. Jan, thank you for giving us your time and your expertise and staying up to date all the time to give us the best information available. And we will see you guys in July.
Super. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Bye.